All right, can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, all right, okay. I love to run. I may be the slowest runner, but I love running. I've been running for about 25 years or so. And the only brand of shoes that I will wear when running are Nikes. 25 years, turtle's pace. Nike shoes. What has Nike done to inspire this kind of loyalty? How has Nike seduced me? Well, I kind of thought about it, and at first I thought, well, maybe it's because of the kind of innovative technology that Nike puts in its shoes. But honestly, I kind of buy one of the lower end models of Nike, so I'm not getting the benefit of the triple fly wire, lunar glide mesh, blah, blah, blah technology, right? So then I thought, well, maybe it's because Nike has all those cool celebrity endorsements. And they have some great endorsements, Rory McIlroy, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. But last year when that whole thing happened with Lance Armstrong, I kind of realized that I don't really care who else wears Nike shoes. The only person that I care about is me, right? It's all about me. And that's what Nike does. They understand that it's all about me. They understand me. They understand why I run. They understand how I feel when I run. They get me, or they get the me that I want to be. That's how Nike has seduced me. So I kind of started thinking about it even more, and I thought, well, I wonder if other brands have a similar influence on me and people like me. And if they do, how and why? That's what led me to what great brands do. So I looked at a range of great brands, some of the world's greatest brands, Apple, Starbucks, Amazon, Zappos. I also looked at some smaller companies that were developing really great brands like Chobani Yogurt or Method products or even Shake Shack. And what I discovered is that these brands have several things in common. The first is that they all enjoy higher profit margins than the average of their categories. People are willing to pay more for products from these brands. They also enjoy energized differentiation, which is a term that the ad agency Y&R's Brand Asset Valuator uses to describe a brand's dynamism, vision, and invention based on consumer surveys. And these great brands also tend to be at the top of those, kind of those lists like the Interbrands Best Global Brands Report or 100 Best Places to Work. But what I found beneath those metrics that speak to the greatness of these brands, I found a crucial common underpinning that these brands shared. These brands think about and do brand building differently. They conceive of their brands as complete strategic platforms that they use in their business. Instead of using their brands or thinking about their brands as a kind of an external message to promote, they're actually they're actually using their brands as complete management tools that they use to fuel, align, and guide everything that they do. And they operationalize their brands as the most critical way of managing and growing their business. Now, I found that this approach, this kind of complete management approach, is not very common. In fact, according to a survey that was done by the Association of National Advertisers, they surveyed chief marketing officers and brand directors. And 64% of them said that the brands do not influence business decisions at their companies. 64%. So that means at, let's say, 2/3, nearly 2/3 of all companies, the brands are not aligned. So they're communicating, they're pouring millions of dollars into advertising and marketing, communicating the brands, but those aren't aligned with the business strategies of their companies. And as a result, the brand building ends up being kind of a discrete, subjective exercise for marketing, as opposed to a core driver of the business. And the full business value of the brand, therefore, goes unrealized. So how do great brands avoid this pitfall? I found in my research what I would consider to be some of the most defining, distinctive characteristics or principles that great brands live out. And so I'm going to share a few of them with you today. The first is that great brands start inside, meaning great brands start brand building inside. Here's what I mean. This man may be smiling now, but back in 2002, he was losing sleep. This is Sam Palmisano, and when he took the reins as CEO of IBM, he faced two formidable challenges. The first was that the company, which had traditionally been a computer hardware powerhouse, was now deriving the majority of its profits and revenue from services and software. And so he had to lead his organization to succeed in this new business model, and he had to set expectations both internally and externally for how they were going to do that. The second challenge is that he encountered a workforce that had somewhat bred a sense of entitlement and arrogance because IBM had been so big and so well respected for so long. So Sam could essentially feel the weight of this $81 billion company on his shoulders, not to mention his legacy as a business leader. So let me ask you, when you go to want to signal a change, a new direction for your company, I bet culture is not necessarily the first place that you would start. You know, probably the more common approach would be to overhaul your communication strategies. Let's put on a brand campaign, or let's do a really big PR push. And I think the reason why people normally go that direction is because it's easier to change what you say about yourself than to change yourself. And actually, a corporate image makeover is probably the fastest way to get the attention of shareholders and customers alike. So great brands use their brands to optimize their internal workings and rally everyone around so that they will then ultimately create sustainable, focused, unique customer experiences. So that's what I mean by great brands start inside. And one more comment that I want to make about great brands, about starting inside, is that usually starting inside means saving your communications efforts for later. Zappos is well known, kind of, if you do any kind of reading or studying in this world, they're very well known for fostering the strong corporate culture around delivering happiness. What is equally noteworthy is how little the company spends on advertising and marketing. Right? Think about it. You don't really see their ads very much, right? The CEO of Zappos, Tony Hsieh, explains why he spends so much time and energy investing in customer experience and so little in advertising and marketing, saying that the telephone is the best branding device out there. We've got the customer on the line, their undivided attention for 5 to 10 minutes. If we get that interaction right, they will remember that for a very long time, and they'll tell their friends, so they'll do our marketing for us. Zappos, like other great brands, know that until and unless your culture is clearly expressed through the customer experience, you really don't have anything worth communicating. Great brands start inside. When you start brand building with communications, you are merely expressing your brand. Great brands execute their brands. They execute on those strong cultural foundations in every aspect of their business. And the principles they follow in executing are somewhat surprising. One of the principles that I found was when I started to look into a brand like Starbucks. And as I researched, what I discovered is that Starbucks really isn't just selling coffee. American Express isn't just selling credit cards. And Apple isn't just selling gadgets. What each of these brands offers in these cases, let's see, community, significance, life enhancement, those things are far more meaningful and valuable than the products themselves. Just like Nike offers something that's far more meaningful and valuable than shoes. So here's how I discovered that great brands like Nike avoid selling products. I knew that "Just Do It" was one of the most well-known taglines of all time. What I didn't know is how close Nike came to never using it. You see, back in the 80s, the CEO of Nike at the time, Phil Knight, commissioned his advertising agency to create an advertising campaign to celebrate Nike's role in fueling the jogging craze that had been sweeping across America. So the agency shot these gorgeous TV spots. They were shot on the campus of University of Oregon, where Nike's first shoes were developed. Beautiful vistas, pictures of famous runners, and there was a voiceover that intoned, "The fitness revolution that changed America. It started here." Okay, the spots were meant to be stunning and provocative, and they were when they were previewed in front of Nike's sales managers at a national meeting. The spots were met with reverential silence. And that was not the inspired, enthusiastic response that Phil Knight had been looking for. So he sent the agency back to the drawing board. And the chief marketing officer at Nike at the time, Scott Bedbury, said, "You know, the problem with those ads is that they were about Nike. They weren't about our customers. It was probably the best example of corporate navel-gazing that ever existed." So 2 weeks later, the agency came back, armed with a memo from Bedbury that instructed them to widen the access point to their brand. And they showed a series of commercials that showed people, athletes, doing what athletes do, running, jumping, squatting, straining, grunting, whatever. There was a female triathlete. There was an 80-year-old long-distance runner, a pro basketballer. Each of them spoke with great emotion about what they do and why they do it. And at the end, the spots ended with those 3 words, "Just do it." Scott Bedbury observed that "Just Do It" was not about sneakers. You know, it was about values. It wasn't about selling products. It was about communicating a brand ethos. Just Do It, that campaign ran for 10 solid years and is the prime example of how seducing through emotion trumps pushing products. Instead of promoting Nike's great innovation and technology and performance, those spots allowed real people to speak with great emotion about the emotional rewards of what they did. And never once did they mention Nike. And yet, after the campaign ran, Nike's business really took off. And the company heard from people that said, "You know, those 3 words, just do it, that inspired me. It inspired me to get fit. It inspired me to leave a bad relationship. It inspired me to quit my job. to this day, Just Do It retains such a cultural resonance that people get tattoos that say, just do it. How many other brands do you know that are tattoo worthy like that? So, the lesson here is that Nike is an innovative company. But probably it would be fair to say that Nike's competitors are just as innovative. Nike's brand success comes from its consistent use of experiences and communication that inspire people to feel like athletes. Nike knows that people make product decisions based on how those products make them feel, or the identities that those products enable them to experience or to express. And product features are of secondary importance or only serve to support that emotional connection. So that's what I mean by great brands avoid selling products. Now, so far I've been kind of talking about the overarching strategies that great brands employ, but what my research showed me is that great brands do brand building differently, not only in their high-level strategies, but also in their detailed execution. Great brands sweat the small stuff. They may think big, but they sweat the small stuff. They know that every interaction that someone has with their brand is an occasion to improve and enhance their brand image or detract and diminish it. And so they design their brand experiences down to the very details, often appealing to as many senses as possible, because they know that that's the way, that'll make an impression that is far more impactful, sustainable, memorable than any ad campaign ever could. Every touch point communicates, every communication matters. Sweating the small stuff is what enabled Chobani Yogurt to become the #1 yogurt brand in only 3 years. In my research, I read about the CEO and founder of Chobani, Hamdi Ulukaya, who discovered that after developing his product, he didn't have any money to advertise. So he knew that he was going to have to make a strong impression on the shelves of the grocery stores. So he set about making his packaging using his packaging as a symbol for how special the product was inside. So he decided to use a different size and shape of yogurt cup. So it was kind of shorter and squatter. It looked different than most of other yogurts. And he insisted on using shrunken-on sleeves as labels for his yogurt, as opposed to the standard kind of screened-on method that most yogurt companies used, because that would allow the colors to pop more and to make the product seem more unique and special. And Hamdi says, people say, it's yogurt, who cares? But I believe that there's great emotion to it. There's an experience of opening the yogurt and of eating it. That's why I pay attention to every single detail. And while Hamdi was focused on the visual aspects, sweating the small stuff in the visual aspects of his brand, the folks at Starwood Hotels were focused on sweating the small stuff in the smell of their brands. They developed patented smells for every hotel brand in their portfolio. So like Westin has their white tea linen scent, and they created a signature scent for their W hotels. The CEO at the time that this program was launched, Stephen Heyer, explained that this patented signature smell was part of an overall comprehensive effort that they undertook to connect emotionally with their customers, because they wanted to influence their purchase decisions and inspire their brand loyalty. And ultimately, they saw that that turned into higher RevPAR, which is their industry's key metric, square footage growth, and return on capital invested. Perhaps the most comprehensive effort of sweating the small stuff that I found was by REI, the retailer of outdoor sporting goods. The culture at REI believes that in not leaving any detail of the brand experience unattended. The brand mission for REI is about bringing the excitement and the adventure of the outdoors to customers. So they design every aspect of their store experience to bring that mission to their customers. From the way the stores are designed and laid out, to the materials that they use in the fixtures in their stores, the signage and the graphics, the kinds of people that they hire, what the people wear, the products that they offer, even the ice pick door handles that you use when you walk into the store. All of that signals this adventure and excitement of the outdoors. And then the managers of the stores use a brand management strategy and customer acquisition strategies that ensure that their strategies are executed consistently across all of their stores. And then they extend that online, in their catalogs, in their emails. Everything about what they do is designed to express the brand vision and mission of the outdoors. And they had to overcome some pretty serious organizational silos to ensure a seamless customer experience across those channels. So you as a customer, if you buy something online and then go to pick it up in the store, they wanted to make sure that you would have a seamless journey that took you into that brand mission all the way throughout. And the vice president, Kevin Hagan at REI, says, some companies work really hard at this kind of stuff, but our advantage comes from our core as a mission-driven organization. So that's how REI sweats the small stuff. And what I found is that this attention to customer experience is not very common. What's more likely is that business leaders underestimate the importance of customer experience. There was a study done by Profit, a management consulting firm, and they found that only 13% of executives pointed to customer experience as the key driver of future brand equity, whereas 39%, so 3 times that number, pointed to a specific product or service. So again, that means that there's so many people who are misunderstanding or underestimating the importance of the brand experience and every detail in it. But not great brands. They sweat the small stuff. The last principle that I want to share with you is, again, one that was kind of surprising to me in my research. I came across it when I found companies like this one that normally makes turbine engines and trains, but they were talking about Mother Nature. It also occurred to me when I saw an apparel retailer telling people not to buy their products, and a restaurant chain doing something to address the recession other than just cutting their prices. There seemed to be this kind of new movement in this area that's traditionally known as corporate social responsibility. These brands were not doing things that were about giving back and then feeling good about themselves. They were doing things that really didn't seem to have very much to do with giving back at all. They were actually seeming to say, we don't have to give back. Here's what I mean. Patagonia, the outdoor outfitter. Their mission is to make the best product, do no unnecessary harm, and use business to inspire and implement solutions to the environmental crisis. So Patagonia has something called the Footprint Chronicles, which documents for every product Patagonia makes how it was developed from the raw materials all the way through the supply chain, distribution, manufacturing, et cetera, to when the customer buys the product. So Footprint Chronicles provides a great window for people like us outside the company to look in and say, is Patagonia really living by their mission? And then we can judge whether we want to do business with them or not. And consumers really value that because they only want to do business with companies that operate with authenticity and transparency. So Footprint Chronicles creates value for consumers. It also creates value for people inside the company, because now they have a focus and they have a way of aligning all their efforts, because the company's made it a corporate priority. They've made a public commitment to this. So everyone's moving in the same direction. Footprint Chronicles it creates value for shareholders because it's driven Patagonia to develop a more sustainable supply chain and more efficient manufacturing processes. Mm-hmm. And it's good for the environment. It reduces the company's impact on the environment. So what Patagonia is doing is not CSR, corporate social responsibility. It's CSV, creating shared value. They're doing things in their business that create value for everyone who's involved in the organization. And Footprint Chronicles is only one example of the many ways that Patagonia is doing this. They're constantly exploring their cultural and societal relevance in order to identify new ways to create shared value. And because they create shared value, they never have to give back. You know, there's nothing wrong with giving back, so please don't misunderstand me. But great brands seem to be asking themselves, why merely do good when we could actually be great? And so they're redesigning their business models, re-examining their supply chains, rethinking what they sell and how they sell it. They're shifting their thinking about this, about making a positive impact, from an obligation, something they're kind of expected to do. Any respectable business would do CSR. To an opportunity, or opportunities, I should say, things they want to do because it does create value for everyone who's involved with their business. And they've shifted their decision filters about what things to do and what not to do from thinking about them as responsibilities to do, like let's make a list of things that we can then check off that we've accomplished them, to achieving relevance, ways to deepen and sustain a connection that they have with all the different groups of people that are involved with Patagonia or with any other brand. So that's what I mean by great brands never have to give back. So those are 4 principles that define great brand building. They are the brand building principles that separate the best from the rest. Now, there are actually a few more principles that I didn't have time to share with you today, but they are in my book, and I'd encourage you to take a look at that. But one thing I want to make sure that I haven't done, by presenting this kind of list of principles, I don't want to give you the impression that this is a list of kind of attractive optional measures that you can kind of pick and choose from, kind of like a Chinese menu. What I discovered in researching great brands is that these principles are really part of an integrated, indivisible whole. And great brands implement all of them so that it's this kind of a cohesive management approach so that they get the power out of all of them. But all of this has led me to conclude that we would be wrong to believe that great brands got to be so successful because of good timing, creative advertising, just plain luck. If you look at the brands that I did and research them the way that I did, what you find is that great brands have employed specific techniques that have elevated brand building from a niche marketing function to the core driver of their business. Mm-hmm. And that's what's turned them into industry icons.